Got it. Okay. For the recording, welcome back. We are ACI course for class 7 on April 25, 2024. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom, and see them there with you just by way of your thinking of them. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. We're learning that this is possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. Then turn that mind of intention to your precious holy guide. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked, of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands. And we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Nirya Tayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. So it's been a while since class. Thank goodness I have my notes. But I can pretend I know what I'm talking about. So, okay, Lisa, sorry. So, but let's go through the quiz. That'll bring us back up to speed. This course is about, what is it about? Logic and perception theory. It's about, I forget the name of it.
The proof of other lives is not?
Proof, right, proof of future lives. Thank you. And we started out with Master Dignagas bowing down to that one who is our protector, who is the one who's turned correct, the one who's gone to bliss, the one who is the teacher, the one who has holy great compassion. And supposedly that sequence can be used, it's called the proof of the forward order, that it can be used to prove what it means to be one who has turned correct. Say Marg Yirpa. So really we're talking about perception, correct perception And we're subtly learning the difference between valid perception, which we all have mostly, and correct perception, which if you are like me, you've never had one yet. So, that's later, but we're building this foundation to be able to understand what it means to become one of truly correct perception. And they use that term, say, Mark Girpa, one who has turned correct about Buddha, about a fully enlightened being, as one of the ways you refer to them. And we're learning what that means, not only what it means, but what it implies. And in the process of learning that material, we also pick up on this discussion between the textbook writer and the people of his time who, apparently listened to his discussion and his arguments and still say, yeah, but, none of that can really be true because there's not enough time in one lifetime to go from ordinary selfish slob to having the compassion that's big enough to make our mind become a Buddha mind. So, because you only have this one lifetime, because one's mind and one's body, like they are so interrelated that when the body dies, the mind dies. And I suppose if it happened that your mind died before your body died, the body would die too. Like they're together. So we've reached this sequence of classes where the interchange is between Master Dharmakirti and thus the commentators after him, and the beings who believe that the mind dies with the body, to investigate if that can really be true and still be consistent with our experience in this life. And that's where this class is going to go once we get there, is what's the cause of the mind in this life? Because in studying that, we can more clearly see how the ordinary relationship of my mind dependent on my body isn't accurate. And then the outcome of that we'll see is that, this, to have a mind in this life means I had to have had one before. And I hope I'm supposed to get you there by the end of class. But we need to go back and get into the stream of why we're even going there, which was that string called the reasoning of the forward order. And I'm just going to go through it. And then try to explain it again a little bit, but I don't want to take a lot of time. So your question was, what is the reasoning of the forward order and what do they prove? So they're supposedly proving what it is to become a being who has turned correct. Say Mark Girpa. And I admit, when you read through those reasonings, they don't come across as proofs. It's like you don't read them and go, oh yeah, I get it, right? It's like, how does that prove anything, right? It's only a proof if you already believe it. I still read it that way. But technically, if we took the time to really apply the method of checking the statements, and we added new syllogisms according to what we needed to check these, we would eventually recognize what it is showing us. We don't have enough background in logic to do that yet. So not to worry if this reasoning of the forward order doesn't seem to prove anything to you. Get from the 5 that there's this relationship between these 5 qualities of what it is to be Buddha, what it is to become Buddha. And that's more useful. I can say now, looking back, that that's more useful than trying to chew on these proofs until you can get them to be oh, I see how they're airtight reasoning. Get the relationship between these qualities. It's important. That's more important. So the forward order is first the reasoning of the protector, which is supposed to prove to us that Buddha did turn totally correct. So it says, because he's the protector, he turned totally correct. But what you can think of it more like, all right, let's start with the Buddha is our protector. Like starting with the fire department is who you call when your house is on fire, right? So Buddha is who you call when we're in trouble, when we're in this suffering state. And then why is he our protector? Why is the fire department the protector when our house is on fire? Because they know how to put out a fire and they are obligated to do it. So Buddha is our protector means that we somehow know or believe that Buddha knows what we need to take up and what we need to give up to stop our own suffering. And that's what it means to be omniscient. Really, that's what it means to be Semar Girpa, one who has turned correct, is that they correctly know exactly what every being needs to do and stop doing to stop their suffering. Great, right? That's what our protector would need, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't go to them for protection. So if we call Buddha our protector, then he must have this state of mind that knows exactly what I need to give up and take up. The second one says, the reasoning of having gone to bliss proves that he is the protector. Because having gone to bliss means that being themselves has gotten free from all their suffering and obstacles to omniscience. That's what it means, gone to bliss. So once we know that that's what that term means, then we would go, wow, well, if this being has gotten out of suffering completely, then they must at least know what they needed to do to get themselves out of suffering. And then the term gone to bliss has a bigger meaning than just out of their own suffering. But so if they are one who's gone to bliss, then they have done what they had to do to get out of suffering. And that means they at least know that. And so they can be my protector. They could share with me at least what they did to stop their suffering. Third says the reasoning of the teacher proves that he's gone to bliss. Reasoning of the teacher means that they have taught us emptiness, right? We have lots of teachers and they aren't necessarily our protectors. What's unique to this one is that they teach the empty nature of things and us and themselves and our future Buddhahood and our mind and our emotions, right? The list goes on. The fact that they teach emptiness proves that they've gone to bliss, proves that they themselves have experienced that directly and used what they saw to stop their own mental afflictions forever and to clear out their obstacles to omniscience. Because they teach emptiness, that tells us they've done it themselves. Then the last one is the reasoning of great compassion proves being the teacher because their great compassion is what makes them teach. If they knew how we could all end our suffering and they didn't care, they're not going to say anything. They're not going to go to the trouble to teach a bunch of ants, right, how to see emptiness directly. But with this state of heart, holy great compassion, which is the state of heart, I can't stand to see anybody suffering. I know what's wrong. I have to help them. I can't take it away from them. I can only teach them how to do it. And so they teach, and they'll teach us anything that we need, but the main thing we need is to understand the empty nature of the very suffering me that I believe is so self-existent. So you can work those 5 back and forth. Again, don't worry about getting them until you go, oh, I see the proof. But see the sequence, how those 5 go together. They're not like one at a time thing. First I do this and then I do that. But they're like all somehow interrelated, and they're telling us what's going to happen to us, okay, as we continue on our path. Okay, so then your quiz also asked you, what's the difference then between compassion, great compassion, and holy great compassion? And I know you all know that, so I'm just going to go ahead. Plain old compassion is that recognizing somebody's suffering, having trouble, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry. But really no sense of wanting to step in there and do anything about it. It's a big step just to let ourselves feel compassion instead of put blinders on and look away. Then great compassion is that seeing suffering, oh man, I don't want them to suffer. And, I wish I could do something. Maybe we even try. And maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. And either way, they go on to suffer again. It's still worth trying, of course. Then holy great compassion is that compassion in the mind of a fully omniscient being who sees the suffering, knows it's a big mistake, knows what will help and what won't, and actually acts to help stop the suffering. And that's where it gets a little tricky, because the acting to stop the suffering probably looks different than what we think, right? Shakyamuni Buddha is not in form. He can't act to bring me my dinner on time, but a Buddha's emanations are doing stuff all the time. They just don't look like Buddha to us. yet necessarily. Okay, so technically only fully enlightened beings have this holy great compassion. Do they have holy great compassion because they are fully enlightened beings? No, they had to create the causes for their holy great compassion, just as they had to create the causes for them being a fully enlightened being. And those causes, right, are like kind of like parallel things that we develop: the collection of merit and the collection of wisdom. All right, so as I said, somebody was listening to this discussion and they said, well, then there's no such thing as Buddhas because, as humans, you get this one life, and then when you're dead, your mind is gone. So you don't have time to grow your compassion that big. And that group is called the Sharvakas or Shravakas. They believe that the mind dies when the body dies, and they gave these 3 reasons. They say, 1, because the mind is a quality of the body, like alcohol and its ability to make one drunk. The mind is inside the body, influencing the body. Like alcohol has the ability when it's inside our body to make us drunk. Secondly, they say the mind is a part of the nature of the body, like a wall and the design on the wall. If you don't have a wall, you can't have a design on a wall. If you have a wall, you have a place to put the design. Third one, the mind is a result of the body, like a lamp and its light. No lamp, no light. It's kind of convincing, especially, if you've ever known somebody who's died, and if you've ever seen them dead. It's like they were living yesterday, and now that's just a lump, Where'd that life go? Where'd that mind go? It's very tempting to believe that the mind went with it. So this class is looking at, is the body the cause for the mind? Because if it is, it would be true. When this body ceases, the mind stops too. Right? When the body ceases living, and the mind and the body is the cause of the mind, boom, they must be gone. So the question about what is the cause of the mind comes up. And this class comes from Kedrub J's presentation of actually past and future lives. But it's used to address this question of, is the mind and body this interrelated thing such that when the body dies, the mind ends? So let me give us our vocabulary here. Kedrub J. Kedrub J is Tsongkhapa's left-hand major disciple, usually known for his Tantra teachings, commentaries. And Gyaltsab J is usually known for his logic teachings, but they both mastered both. And so this particular presentation is Kedrub J's discussion about what is the cause of the mind of this life. So about the only thing we know for sure right now is that I am aware. Right? So you can say that to yourself. You know you're aware. And that awareness, Selshin Rikpa, that which is clear and aware, is this, I don't want to say thing we call mind, but I have to, because of language, our awareness happening. That's what we're talking about. What is its cause? So to understand this, well, Kedrub J makes this distinction between Nerlengigyu and Kyen. Nerlengigyu, Gyu means cause. Gi is of, the cause of. Nerlen means material, the material cause. So Nerlengigyu means the material cause. Kyen means other factors, often called conditions. So when we've studied the different flavors of emptiness, we hear them say, oh, objects exist based on their causes and conditions. This is what we're talking about, that the material cause and the contributing factors, the conditions. Now this term, Nerlengigyu, material cause, it means the actual thing that turns into the thing that is the result. The best example is the acorn for an oak tree. The acorn is this material cause for the oak tree. One specific acorn. The acorn had to already be present, right? Had to be there before the oak tree. It had to change in some way in order to become the oak tree, right? The sprout that then grows, and eventually you've got a mature oak tree. And in the process of becoming the result, the material cause must disappear, right? The acorn gives up itself and it's gone at some point completely. So the material cause, Geshe-la says, it means the stuff that flops over into the result. No, really scientific, the stuff that flops over. Traditionally, they say, for a clay pot, the Nerlengigyu, the material cause is the clay. And the Kyen, the contributing factor, is the potter and the wheel and the kiln, etc. There are a lot of different contributing factors that are needed for the material cause to do its thing. But the contributing factors are not the stuff that flops over, right? If you have an acorn and you have all the right contributing factors, the acorn flops over into a sprout, flops over into a tree. If you don't have that acorn, it does not matter how much water, sunlight, fertilizer, soil, etc. You're never going to get an oak tree out of a non-existent acorn. Do you see? The material cause is a crucial piece. Now, there's something about material causes and their results is there has to be some similarity between the two. There is some similarity between what we call an acorn and what we call an oak tree. We don't plant a tomato plant and expect to get an oak tree out of it. Right? We know that there's some correlation between the material cause and its result. With the contributing factors, you don't have that limitation. Sunlight, water, soil, that's the same for all the seeds. But the seeds will uniquely make a plant that's unique to them. We don't water a piece of cement in hopes of an oak tree growing. We know that the cause has to be similar. We know it has to be there before. And we know that the seed is going to disappear as we get the result. So we're not disappointed. Whoa, now I have an oak tree, but I don't have the acorn anymore. That was my favorite acorn. You know, I want them both. You can't have both. The material cause flops over into the result. Those are necessary things to understand about this thing called material cause. But the word material cause makes it sound like we're talking about matter, form, stuff of form. But there will be a material cause for our enlightenment. And that's not a thing of matter. There will be a material cause for our mind, and that is not a thing of matter. So although the word says material cause, try to not hear it in terms of only things like acorns and seeds and the bricks that build your home, and right, it's the whatever factor that flops over into the result and disappears in the process, was there first, has some similarity to the result, and disappears in the process of the result coming to be. Got it? Nerlengigyu. So what we are looking for, says Kedrib J, is we want to know the material cause of the first moment of our mind in this life. Right? We know we have a mind because here we are. We know we had to have had a first moment of mind in this life. Probably we don't remember it. Probably we can't even relate to it. Like, what's the first moment of awareness when the egg and sperm touch? It's like in this tradition, that's the moment of conception. Is that when the mind goes in there? Is it later? Is it at the first breath? Is it at the first kick? Is it at the first burp? When is it? regardless of when it is, where did it come from? Is that mind a changing thing? Yes. Changing things must have causes, don't they? Something has to act on them to make them to change. So this first moment of mind in this life has to have a cause because it's changing. So Kadrib says, let's see if we can find the Nerlengi Gyu for the first moment of life, of someone's life. Let me make sure I'm not missing something here. All right, so do we believe that our mind is actually a stream of consciousness? And Geshe took the time to point out that we must believe that our mind flows on, streams on, being influenced by experiences. And he says, because we send our kids to school, like because we go to school, it says that even if we say we don't believe in a continuous mind stream, we do believe that we can learn something in first grade that we will use to learn more in second grade, that we use to learn more all the way up to becoming effective, efficient, capable adults. No, and even if we didn't have a chance to go to school, we learn stuff, living on the street or under an apprentice, and the stuff that we learn gets added to from other stuff. And Geshe says just the fact that we attend school, attend classes, shows that we believe that we have this mind stream that's like a spaghetti noodle. And I don't know, in the end, I don't think it's spaghetti noodle, but it's a good place to start. And then the spaghetti noodle that we're talking about now is the spaghetti noodle, your mind of this life. So my spaghetti noodle is considerably longer than most of yours, but all of ours had to have a first, like a beginning end of the spaghetti noodle, right? So we're talking about people that believe that when this body dies, you die, which means something must happen at conception or birth that makes a mind come into being. You see, we can see the process of birth happen. So we know the physical body is taking birth. And then, but it's got a mind. So something had to start the mind because there it is. And it's got the time of that body to do what it's going to do, because when the body dies, that's the end of that mind. So that's why we're talking about it. This spaghetti noodle. So if we can say, all right, I'll agree that I believe that I have a spaghetti noodle mind and that it must have had a first moment in this life. Then we can go further and say, all right, then let's see if we can find what the thing was that flopped over into that first moment of your mind of this life. Do you see? So we're starting at the place where we all agree. Do you have a mind right now? Yes. Hey, were you born in this life? I think so. Did you have to have a first moment of mind in this life? Yes, I guess I did. Where did it come from? So Pedram J says, that cause has to be an existing thing. And so it must be able to be found amongst the category called all existing things. Can a non-existing thing bring about something? You Arya Nagarjuna investigators? No. So he gives us this table. I think we've seen it before. Maybe we haven't. Called all existing things. Sheja means all existing things, all knowable things, technically is what it says. All knowable things. And when we want to investigate something like this, we break all knowable things down into categories of similarities. And then we look at the category, because everything that belongs within that category, what we logic out about the category will be true for every existing thing that belongs in that category. So this way, they say, let's consider all knowable things. We can divide all knowable things into knowable things that are takpa, that are unchanging, and knowable things that are not unchanging or changing. So can we agree, if you take all existing things and you break them into unchanging things and changing things, have we covered all existing things? Yeah, like, because they're one or the other. Now, things that are unchanging things, we don't even have to go into what those different things are, because can an unchanging anything serve as the material cause of a changing thing? No, because in order to serve as a cause, material or otherwise, that thing must change. And it for sure can't be the material cause of something, because it would change, it would go from unchanging to changing and then disappear in the process. And an unchanging thing can't do that. An unchanging being can't be the cause of our world. We studied that before. An unchanging creator being can't create anything, because they have to change in order to create. A changing creator being can create stuff, of course. So can we say that we can just set aside all unchanging things, all things within the category of unchanging knowable things? We don't need to even consider them either any further as material causes for the first moment of our mind, because they can't cause anything. They're unchanging things. Can we agree? Take them away. So we then go to the category of things called not unchanging, meaning changing. And within the category of changing things, You can divide all of them. He gives us two divisions. Technically, there's a third. These two divisions, Bempo and Rikpa. So if I were tech savvy, I would draw a line here and a line there. And then I would draw a line here and a line there. Can you see it in your mind's eye? So Bempo, within the category of changing things, we can say all those changing things that are physical matter, Bempo, and all those changing things that are mental things, all those things that are mind. Oh, yay, you wizard. Perfect. Magic. Okay, wait. So we're going to investigate all the different categories of things in each of these two categories of changing things. We're going to look for all the possible things that could be material cause for our mind under physical stuff. And if we don't find it there, we'll go looking under the category of all knowable stuff that is mental stuff. So let's start with the Bempo, the physical stuff. All changing things that are physical can be divided into Wangpo Suk and Chi Suk. So, wizard, give us two more arrows, please. That's just like magic. Yay. Wangpo Suk. Wangpo means the sense powers. So the Wangpo Suk means the living physical matter. So you could say Bempo, there's living and not living, but they call it Wangpo Suk, which is the matter that has to do with our five senses. The Chi Suk is an outside physical matter, meaning outside the boundary of our own personal living body. Any matter outside of that falls under the category of Chi Suk, which is outside matter. Now, it can be living or not, depending on if we're looking at somebody else's physical matter, but we're making this distinction between changing things that are physical, that are the material things inside me, meaning you, or outside me, meaning you. In Chi Suk category, there are 4 elements. In the Wangpo Suk category, there are 5 powers. So all we need to do is determine whether or not it's possible for the cause of the first moment of this mind to be found in either one of these categories. And if we find that we can prove that we can't find them there, then just like we wiped out Takpa, we'll wipe out the Bempo Mi Takpa category. So let's start with the Wangpo Suk. Now, Geshe-la said at this point in his class, You know, my guess is he's looking at people's faces and they're going, right? And he says, look, some of what this class presents will probably give you doubt because we have our biases from our culture, whether it's a religious bias or it's a science bias. Our biases, right, are really strong beliefs. And he said, look, if you're just willing to hear this discussion and be open to think about it, that's enough to cast some doubt on whatever doubt you already have about your own system. Because you have some doubt about your own system or you wouldn't be here in class. And our habit will be to try to defend our own system, even though we're wanting to reject it. It's like it's inside us to do that. And he says, look, don't worry about if this class doesn't make you all of a sudden, you know, formally, completely reject everything else. Just casting doubt on it is enough to keep you moving towards the seeds that you need to reveal truth to yourself. Right? Doubt on the doubt is useful. He said the main thing that we doubt yet is the workings of karma, or to doubt that there's not some unchanging permanent soul that is you, inside you, and always will be, or some belief that the mind really does die with the body. So just be open. It's enough. Okay. Let's take a break. Stop the share. Pause the recording. Oh, the arrows all went away. Okay, get refreshed, please.
Total confusion. Can I get a new brain to understand all this?
You are making a new brain as we speak.
Lama, may I ask you a question?
Okay.
When I was have been thinking after the retreat and the classes and about this omniscience part, to see if I am crazy or understood wrong. So now I have my mind, and my mind on it is this projection or creation of my world. Okay. So let's say, thanks to my goodness and my dear teachers, I become a Buddha. And then it's the same mind, but with a new merit and karma that is now projecting or creating omniscience. Now my question is, in this moment, if I see people around me as an ordinary being, my karma is forcing me to see them suffering, and how I perceive each being is according to my karma.
Right.
Now, when I become a Buddha, this omniscience is still in my own world. Like, let's say, when we all become Buddhas, then each of us is going to have our own world of projections and omniscience of those beings in our world. Is that correct? Or is it like now I, as a Buddha, can see Sarahni's Buddha world? Do you know what
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Yes.
get?
Yes, I do. And our language is so limited. You know, there were those questions that Buddha wouldn't answer because any way he answered it, he knew the person he was talking to would misunderstand. It's kind of like that, but I see where you're going. And to the best of my ability, when I try to describe it to myself, is that every Buddha being perceives purely and perceives those directly, those who don't perceive themselves purely, and they perceive isn't the right word. They experience their being omniscient, and they experience the empty nature of all of that, all simultaneously, which is why it's like inconceivable. But if we tried to break it down, we'd say, oh, there's 4 bodies of your Buddha. Your paradise body, what you look like in your own Buddha paradise. Not meaning you're the only one there, meaning you and your world is Buddha paradise and everybody in it. So if you're omniscient, you're also aware of those Buddha paradises, like you're sharing them all. And they say what all those Buddhas do is they do Mahayana Dharma. You know, your turn to teach today. Your turn to teach today. Right, let's do a Dharma dance. I don't know what it's like, but simultaneous and in the same space is their emanation being that's being what anybody needs. And so we say, oh, it's going and waiting on the bus, you know, for eons until you're at the right position for them to help you. But, you know, your emanations are like the air we breathe and the water we drink. And like your emanation is everything anybody needs. But what they really need is to be taught emptiness. So they're that too. Like we're so limited in how we can conceive of emanation. And then the wisdom bodies are the omniscience, and the Dharmakaya, the emptiness of all of it.
My point was going into the direction, if there are already many Buddhas, why do we need more if they can already help us teaching us and so? And this is my own conclusion that I am trying to make in my mind.
Because you want to wiggle out getting to be a Buddha?
Because I need, it's like now, is my karma that is creating this. So it's in my responsibility to make this and all the people that I perceive through my karma Buddhas. So
Right.
you cannot do it in my
Right.
creation, and therefore each of us has to become Buddha. So we perceive in each of our Buddha creations those others as Buddhas.
Right.
You know what is that
I
correct?
do. It's like there's no conundrum there. Yes. Because the
Okay.
only way to become a Buddha is to want to become a Buddha for everybody else.
But my everybody else. And there is
Yeah.
your everybody else and Alice and Olga's, and then
Exactly.
I have to become a Buddha, so my everybody else become Buddha. That is not going to be the same everybody else as Flavia's or any other. So therefore, is
Exactly.
each of us responsibility to become Buddhas to help everybody else's in our projection to become
Exactly.
Buddhas.
Exactly.
So when I say the Buddhas are omniscient in my world, not in, like they cannot jump to your perception.
No, there's no them to jump like that.
Like there is not an over Buddha, you know what?
No.
Like a super Buddha.
Right. Buddhas are not self-existent. You don't become self-existent Buddha when you become Buddha. They are still seeds ripening and nothing but.
Okay, thank you, Lama. Sorry, I just wanted to be clear with this omniscience part.
clear as. Wait a minute. That recording started itself. That was all on the recording. Whoever did that, good job. Thought I stopped it. Oh, look at Wizard, our arrows are gone. So we're talking about, can Wangpo Suk, the inner physical matter, be the material cause for our mind? So we need to know about these Wangpo Suk things. I said there are 5 of them. There's our eye power, ear power, nose power, tongue power, and tactile power. And what we mean by that is the physical tissues that serve to give the information to the awareness. So for instance, the Wangpo Suk for the eye of the eye power is the retina and the optic nerve. And probably whatever tissue is in the back of the brain, I don't know the name of it. Those physical tissues that are sensitive to light and shape, that pick up information and provide it to the eye consciousness, through which the mind says, oh, pine tree. The eye power doesn't see pine tree. The eye power doesn't see pine needles. It doesn't even see green. It picks up information. The eye consciousness triggers what we would call green, and then the mind goes green shape, pine tree. So technically the mind is an instant behind the information coming at us in this school. So we have those tissues, the eye of the ear power, nose, tongue, and tactile, which is really the biggest, right? Our visual consciousness is probably the biggest that we relate to, but our tactile sense power is all over us. So the question would be, if we're going to find the material cause of our mind in the first moment of this life within this category of our sense powers, Kedrab J asks, it would either need to be found inside any one of those sense powers, or in all 5, or technically within any combination. Right? He just addresses, does it take all 5 sense powers to be present to serve as the Nerlingigyu of the first moment of mind, or does it take only one? He says, let's look and see what experience shows us, right? Let's apply logic. If it takes all 5 sense powers intact in order to flop over into the first moment of mind, does that not mean that any child born living would have to have functioning eyes, ears, nose, touch, and touch? And then wouldn't that mean that If that child was born blind, it would have no mind because it wouldn't have all 5 sense powers intact. And our premise was it takes all 5 sense powers intact for something to flop over into the first moment of mind. That means if one is missing, you get no mind. And that's not true, right? Babies are born deaf, blind, and they still have mind. Further, he says, if you still hold that it takes some combination to flop over, and then you have the mind going on. If someone goes on to lose one of those sense powers that was part of the Nirlingigyu, does that mean your mind becomes suddenly that much less? So you get your mind from all 5 sense powers and then you go blind. So now do you have 20% less mind? No, you have different, right, mind activity than you had before, but you don't have less mind. If the sense powers were the cause of your mind, not just the first cause, but the ongoing cause, then if you lose a sense power, you should lose that much mind. And you don't. Everybody agrees. So, okay, it can't be all 5 that are necessary to be the Nirlingigyu. What about just one of them? Okay, it just takes one. Kedrub J says, all right. If that one sense power is the thing that flops over into the whole mind, I need to find it. Then that one sense power's quality should be the quality of similarity that flops over into the mind. Like the acorn had to have some quality of similarity that made the oak tree. If it's the I power that we determine is the material cause of the mind, then the mind has to have some similarity with the I power. And I don't know, to me, it's like it does, because my mind can think it sees when really the I is doing this thing. But Kedrub J says, if the mind is similar to the I power that was its material cause, then the mind should be able to see with the same kind of clarity and precision as the I power picks up. So when the I power picks up color and shape now and sends that information to the mind, and the mind sees the pine tree, that pine tree is much more clear and precise and functioning than the pine tree that the mind thinks of as a memory. And this argument says that if the I power was the material cause that makes the mind, then the mind thinking about a pine tree that it's seen before but is not seeing now, that pine tree should appear to the mind with the same clarity as it appears to the eyeball. I don't buy that argument myself. it doesn't seem strong enough. I like the argument of if my mind relies for its material cause on my I power, and I lose my I power, is my mind going to disappear? Right? It should. And it doesn't. People go blind and they don't, lose their consciousness.
But
So
in that case, Lama, the seed of the tree also disappears as material cause, but the tree stays. So the material cause will disappear and still the result stays
yeah,
in the comparison with the seed and the tree.
yeah, I don't know why they don't use that argument here. If the I power is the material cause of my mind, then the I power has to disappear when my mind comes in. And it doesn't, I still have it. That's not the answer. That's not the argument that they give in the answer key. But to me, that one's stronger, right? None of our sense powers disappear when our mind comes into being. And they should if they are the Nerlingigu. Are they contributing factors? Absolutely. But they're not the thing that turns into the mind at the first moment of this mind in this life, whenever that was. Right? And there's certainly not the material cause of the ongoing mind. Right? But we might think so. Of course, my mind is influenced by everything I see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. How can I experience anything else? My mind does rely on those things constantly, but not as its causal factor. Right? It isn't caused by those things. It is influenced by them for sure, but it's not caused by our mind is not caused by the color and shape or sound. It's not caused by that. It's influenced by those. So can we scratch out inner living tissue as the material cause for our mind? Please say yes, or I won't be able to finish class. All right, then. The second category of changing things that are physical is chi suk, which is outside physical matter. Outside physical matter, all of it that exists, is made up of some combination of, excuse me, of the four elements. Air, earth, water, and fire. Air meaning the quality of movement. Earth meaning the quality of form, hardness, shape. Water meaning the quality of fluidity. And fire meaning the quality of temperature. Any physical thing has some combination of those four. A rock has more earth element and a lot less air element than a river. A river has more fluidity than a rock. A tree has less fluidity than a river, but more fluidity than a rock. Everything is made up of some combination of those four. So, Kedrib J says, let's check to see if the first moment of our mind can come about from all four of those elements together, flopping over, or any one of them flopping over to make our mind. Can we find the cause of our mind in any one of these four elements or all four together? He says, first of all, if it takes all four together, then does that mean if an atom of earth was missing, then the mind can't occur? Like, do they all have to be in equal amounts? Or, right, is there some designated amount of each one that makes it flop over into mind? And then whatever we decide is the combination of all four that's necessary to be the flop over. If you're missing some, does that mean no mind happens? He says further, and can you find something that has all four elements, but has no mind? Well, yeah, like my sofa, the computer, the car, right? Any outside non-living physical thing is made up of some combination of all these four elements, and they don't flop over into mind. So if it takes all four of those, when all four of those come together, that will make mind. It should do it every single time all four come together. And we say, no, all four have to come together in just a really special way to make them flop over into mind. Well, then that means it's not them coming together, it's the special way that is the cause. Right? So not all four. What about any one of those four elements? Can it just be some element within the earth element that ends up being the actual thing that flops over into the first moment of mind? And I don't know, we might say, look, what about air element? You know, air is this movement, and the mind's like that, movement. Surely it's a moment of air that flops over. And Kendrick doesn't address that specifically. He says, look, if any one element is the cause for the first moment of mind, the thing that flops over into the first moment of mind, then suppose it was an element of iron that flops over into the first moment of my mind, then by definition of what it is to be Nirlingi Gyu, my mind would have the characteristic of iron. And it doesn't. Because iron is a physical thing. Even a teeny little atom of iron, it's still a physical thing. And our mind is Selshing Rikpa, that which is clear and aware. There's nothing about any one of those elements, nor all four together, nor any combination of them that's similar to clear and aware. They are all material things, no matter how subtle. Even that the air element. As a physical element, it is a physical thing. Air. So chi suk cannot serve as the cause for the mind because they're not similar enough. Yes, they can be there before. Yes, maybe we could make a case that they disappear when they become mind, but they're too dissimilar. They have to be part of the contributing factors, not the thing that flops over and thus disappears. Yes, Lisa.
Sorry, Lama, for me to understand, when we say this chi suk, we are meaning like if I'm talking about my mind, it's outside of me. Let's say the womb of my mother. Is that what we are talking about? Like the elements of the things outside the
Yeah.
boundary of my body. That means the cause for my mind could be the womb of the mother I am in. Is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
Yeah, that's what he's wanting us to think. But even as we're going through life, we're being influenced by all the outside things. Are we thinking that seeing that car accident makes my mind become distressed? Yeah. Right. And it's like, well, is that a Nerlengigu or again, a contributing factor to what my mind's experiencing? Or is that making my mind, right? We say, oh, that made me so upset. And it's like, well, okay, so you believe that that outside factor, right, made you change in some way. Yeah, it did. Well, then do you think it's causing your mind? No, right? My mind was already there. It's just causing some change in my awareness. Yeah, but your mind is your awareness. Right? They're really not ridiculous arguments when you start to really try to pinpoint, what is my mind really? We haven't talked about that. We're not gonna for a long time. Okay, so theoretically, we can now say, son of a gun, I can't find the cause of the first moment of my mind in the outside, and I can't find it in my inside physical tissue. We can't find it in unchanging things. All that's left is changing things that are rikpa, that are mental, that are mind. But we're not done yet because there are rikpa that belong to other people, and there's rikpa that is my own. So Kedrib J says we need to check to see if the first moment of my mind, the material cause of my mind, comes from an other's mind. Right? Does somebody else's mind, something about their mind, flop over into the first moment of my mind? So, like, what do you think? Those who have been pregnant and you just first learned that you were pregnant, but what did you think was in there? And then when did suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, that's a baby in there. And it had some, response to you and then at some point you had this relationship with a being in there, right? It went from, well, I don't know what's in there, to, oh my gosh, there's a being in there, there's a mind in there, and it's responding. Like, where does science tell us that that comes from? You know, I don't know. I studied it, but it never made sense to me. But somewhere along the line, you know, there's enough cells and there's enough of the central nervous system, and all of a sudden it's kicking and pushing back and responding, and it goes from not having consciousness to having consciousness. And everybody goes, great, you're going to have a healthy baby, right? At some point. And nobody asks, well, wait a minute. How did it go from chemicals to clear and aware? Science can't answer that. And they don't really try much. But we want to know. Because if mind can only come from something similar, then it can only come from a mind that's already there, that flops over into the new moment of mind, and in the process, the previous one goes away. So of all the minds, there's mind, and there's yours. So can someone else's mind flop over into my new mind? Does the parent's mind flop over into the infant's mind somewhere along the way, from conception to first breath? What would be the argument to say no? Because if we don't really know when the baby, you know, wakes up, how can we say no, it's not the parent's mind? Kandribje's argument is, well, because a father can be a really skilled carpenter, and the boy can not know the difference between a nail and a hammer, right? Or the child can be a, you know, piano, what do you call it? Virtuoso, and the parents can both be imbeciles, you know? And his argument is there's not enough similarity there. I don't know. I don't buy that one either. It seems to me the similarity is the mind is clear and aware, right? The parent's mind is clear and aware. Can't you give some of your clear and aware to that little creature and then make it be clear and aware? But he's saying, if you do, then the clear and aware that you give them is going to influence them in the same way that your clear and aware is being influenced. And so you and your kids should be closer to identical. And we're not, clearly. I don't get that one myself. My own argument is that if the parent's mind is the thing that flops over into the child's mind, it is there before. It could flop over, but it would need to disappear in the process, like the acorn goes away. And truly, once you're a parent, you are never the same, but you are not less mind, right? In fact, you have more mind, right? Because you have more to handle, more to deal with. So it doesn't, the parent's mind doesn't qualify for Nirlingi Gyu because it doesn't disappear in the process of your child's mind coming into being. They don't use that argument, at least not in the answer key. They use the argument that they're not similar enough. but you decide which one you want to use. So if we have ruled out anything within the category of unchanging as the material cause for our mind, and we've ruled out any inner physical matter or outer physical matter within the category of changing things that are physical, none of those can be the material cause of our mind. And we went to the mind category of changing things and looked into others' mind as possible causes for our own mind and found that that's not possible. What's left as the cause for our own mind? Within the category of all knowable things, what's left? Our own mind. So now, is it our own mind in the moment that causes our own mind in the moment? No, because it has to be there before, flop over into the result, and in the process go away. So is your mind moment, the moment before, gone by the moment now? Yes. Is your mind similar to the one you had before? I think so, right? I'm like moving my mind back. Yes, I think I'm the same me. I'm not, of course. Has to be there before, flop over into the result and go away in the process. So does a previous moment of my own mind qualify as that which flops over into the result? Does it have those three criteria? Yes. So if we had a first moment of mind in this life, it had to be the result of a material cause, which had to be a moment of that mind before. Right? So that means that that mind had to be before this body got conceived. And that means that that mind itself had to have had a first moment of mind. And that would have required a moment of mind before that life. So that means this moment of mind that you have now has never not, right, been the now moment of your spaghetti noodle mind. It never had a first material cause, but it has never not had a material cause. Right? Always. And that means that this body will die, but that mind is just going to keep flipping, 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 flipping. Which shows us that our mind is beginningless and endless. We know our physical body is not endless. But this thing called my consciousness, not my Sarahni, but this consciousness is constantly changing, and eternal. Remember when we were doing Takpa, Mitakpa, it's like there's one thing that's constantly changing and permanent, and that's this mind, your own mind, which is the only one you can really confirm. But, right, our projection of other beings with other minds, the same goes for them. They have their unique mind. So theoretically, this sequential go looking for something and can't find it will leave us with the only thing left. And even if we don't feel like we've fully proven that my own previous moment of mind is the thing that flops over into this moment of mind, there isn't anything else that it can be. And we know that we have mind. So it has to have a cause, right? So there's a name for that kind of conclusion. I can't remember it, but it's this conclusion by withdrawing every other possibility, and all that's left is the one that we can then rely upon, right, as true. So what? So that means that the argument by the Shravakas that the mind dies when the body dies, and so therefore there's not enough time to grow our compassion, so therefore there's no such thing as Buddhas, is incorrect. And even if we don't relate to the Shravakas or Sharvakas, sorry, are we still relating to science, which says when your body dies, the mind dies? Mostly. However, that said, there are many examples of people who have had near-death experience. And one that I find really useful is there's a physician, I think he was a neurologist or some super surgeon, who got a terrible case of meningitis and died. His brain function was 0, but they put him on life support and kept him alive. And so I don't know how long he was comatose, like worse than comatose, 0 brain function. But then he wakes up. And he wakes up with an ability to recall, explain what he experienced while his EEG was flatline, right? And that's what was extraordinary about this particular case, is they had him on the EEG and it showed 0 brain function. And when he came back, he described these elaborate experiences with people he knew, family members, right? He could relate things that other people verified. You know, he had this extraordinary experience that said that his mind was not limited to his brain. And his entire belief system was that brain, right? It runs the show. And he realized that that was not true. And like everything he'd ever learned was incomplete and incorrect. And he quit practicing medicine, right? He couldn't do it anymore. And he went into, you know, spiritual training and, you know, personal empowerment work. And he's gone on to share, you know, his wisdom with other people. But it kind of takes that, the fact that he was hooked up to the EEG and he says, no, I was not brain dead. My brain was not functioning, but my mind was more active and more complete and more big, more capable than when I was stuck to my physical body. So our minds and our bodies do have relationship. but they are not a relationship of cause and effect. And they are not a relationship of identity. Right? There's some other kind of relationship. It's a limiting belief to think our brain is our mind. Because it's not. The brain is like the computer. It's doing its thing with information. But our mind is what sees the movie. And now we've shown ourselves that that mind is not limited to the life of this body. Technically, it's not even limited to the body. We just use it that way. All right, so again, we're done a little bit early. I'm banking those extra minutes. Go through this argument again and again. Okay? And work with them a little bit to see if you can get this aha about, oh my gosh, my mind and my body are not as solidly connected as I was maybe thinking. But don't go crazy. You're not disconnected from your body. Your body is a proper vehicle to use. And then in the next two classes, we go in deeper into the relationship between the mind and the body of the newborn baby, so that we can understand it a little bit more deeply. So there you have it. Remember that one we wanted to be able to help? We learned a lot, whether we think so or not, that we will use sooner or later to help that other end their suffering forever. And that's an extraordinary goodness, really. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy guide. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please, please stay close, to continue to guide you, inspire you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To share it with everyone you love. To share it with every being you've ever seen or heard of. See them all filled with happiness, filled with wisdom. And may it be so. All right. Thank you so very much. That was fun. Stop the
Thank you.
recording. Thanks for the arrows, Linsong.